I'm Carrie Adams, and you're listening to Carrie's Connoisseurs, coming to you from Solid Gold Podcasts. Here we talk to the movers and shakers, the drinkers, the dreamers, and all the people who make it happen in the liquor and luxury industries from around the world. Well, good morning again. It's Carrie's Connoisseurs, and today I have Elunda Basson with me. I think everybody knows who Elunda is. I certainly do. Everybody in my world does. Elunda is the cellar master at Steenberg Winery in Constantia. Hello. Thank you for joining us on Carrie's Connoisseurs. How are you? Happy New Year.
Yes, thank you so much. Happy New Year, happy harvest. It feels like afternoon already. We've been here since early morning, but it's all good and great.
Well, thank you for taking time. The reason that I wanted to chat to you is because we've just come through a festive season, yet another one, where everybody tends to drink more bubbles during the Christmas sort of period than they do otherwise. And as we know, the bubbly world is on fire at the moment. Everybody is drinking fizz. Everybody wants bubbles. And there's a very, very big shortage of bubbly across the world. South Africa makes fantastic sparkling wine. And I think that maybe you are my first interview, my first podcast of the season, I think. Cal, I can't remember. Maybe I did one other. But anyway, I think we need to remind everybody that South African sparkling wine is straight up there where the French, the Proseccos, which are now so incredibly popular, the Spanish bubblies, we make beautiful stuff. There's no reason why people shouldn't be buying us instead of French. I'm probably going to be shot down in flames for having said that. Elunda is the cellar. You're the cellar master in total, or do you just head up the bubblies at Steenberg, Elunda?
No. It's me, myself, I doing all
everything.
The still wines, the whole portfolio. Yep.
And has the harvest started for you? Are you picking for your bubbles?
Yes. So we source our Chardonnay and Pinot grapes off from other regions that are better suited for grape growing of Chardonnay and Pinot. Unfortunately, the beautiful Steenberg farm is a little windy, and although Sauvignon Blanc loves a little breeze through the vineyards in summer season, Chardonnay and Pinot is a little bit more sensitive. So we source most of the Chard and the Pinot from the Robertson and Darling areas. And as we speak, really? My first load of grapes are standing outside waiting to be offloaded and processed. Oh my gosh,
I better not keep you too long, or we're going to have fruit already fermenting grapes in the back of a lorry. Elunda, you make a couple of bubblies. I just wanted to remind everybody, you've got your famous Sauvignon Blanc bubbly, which I think is like cold drink. You can it's around about 140 Rand, 150 Rand a bottle. It's unbelievable value for money. I'm interested to hear from you, the vinification of that Sauvignon Blanc bubbly. Do you also have to pick the grapes at a much lower balling, i.e. much lower sugars, like you do the Chard and the Cab?
Yes.
I mean the Pinot Noir.
We're super proud of the bottle fermented sparkling Sauvignon Blanc from Steenberg, because we really do believe that it's quite unique in its positioning within the sparkling wine category, in that it's not a normal carbonated Sauvignon Blanc and it's not a Cup Classique, so it doesn't have the bottle fermentation period that a Cup Classique has to have per definition, but everything else is in principle, by definition, made in the classic champagne method. So we harvest the grapes at a similar sugar to the Chardonnay Pinot that's used for Cup Classique. It's whole bunch pressed, it's cuvee juice, and then the base wine goes into the bottle for its own unique second fermentation in the bottle. It's all remoaged and riddled by hand. So we believe that kind of puts it, sets it apart in the sparkling Sauvignon Blanc category, because you have the same mouthfeel and the same beautiful, elegant bubble that you have on Champagne and Cup Classique.
Tell me, the Sauvignon Blanc, of course, Steenberg has made a massive name for itself with the many and varied Sauvignon Blancs that you do produce on the farm, so it made sense to make a sparkling one as well, you're sourcing those grapes from the farm. So all the Sauvignon Blanc grapes in the bubblies come from Steenberg itself.
So most of it, yes. I think the flexibility of the sparkling Sauvignon allows that it could also be sourced outside of Constantia, because our primary focus for terroir and Constantia expression is for use in the still wine, the classic range and the flagship range. So that's where Constantia terroir is super important for us. But within the sparkling Sauvignon Blanc, we also source Sauvignon from outside of the region, basically because we started off with a super small volume. And as you say, the bubbly category is still just hot stuff. It's exploding. Everyone's enjoying it. And the profile of the sparkling Sauvignon is just so easy drinking. And it's a nice way for younger, new consumers to be introduced into Steenberg, which as a still wine portfolio can be quite serious wines. And I think the sparkling Sauvignon brings the fun edge to it.
Well, I was just having a look. I mean, I think your flagship bubbly is it the Lady R?
Yes, correct.
Which is really an extremely special bottle of sparkling wine. And again, I talk price because my listeners and my customers and my viewers and what have you, they like to know what they're paying, when. And the Lady R, I think, sits on the shelf at Norman Goodfellow's, I think, around about 500 and something rand a bottle. Yeah. If you consider that a bottle of Moet and Chandon is sitting there at around about 650, creeping up to the 700 rand mark, and in short supply.
Yes.
So you're not always guaranteed that you're going to be able to get that. I'm not trying to underplay the importance and the loveliness of French bubbly at all. But at the same sort of price, you are getting the top end. It's like buying the fastest Ferrari for the same price. It doesn't really make sense at this stage of the game to encourage the drinking of imported product when we are making such lovely stuff. Talk to me about the Lady R, because it is a very special bubbly and it is to be made a note of by everybody who's listening as a possible go-to for a very special occasion. I mean, we want everybody to drink the Sauvignon Blanc and the non-vintage Chardonnay. You make a Blanc de Blanc. Hey, yes, you make a straight Chardonnay, a straight Pinot Noir, the Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Lady R. It's a very special product.
I think it's a hugely underappreciated category within Cup Classique, but I'm so happy to say that in the massive support that the South African local market of consumers have given the category of Cup Classique post-COVID, I think that we're fast getting into a space where consumers are becoming aware and understand the quality that they're getting in South African bubbles and Cup Classique. And when we move into those higher priced spaces, it really, it's incredible value for money to rather spend your bucks on a special bottle of vintage claimed, time on lease, properly good quality Cup Classique rather than a normal run-of-the-mill non-vintage blended champagne, because one fails in comparison.
How long are you leaving your non-vintage on the lease for?
So non-vintage is usually between 18 and 24 months. Again, because of COVID and the alcohol ban, I think a lot of brands are finding that they've been able to age it on lease a little longer, and that converts into
makes it nicer,
more value for money that you're getting in your non-vintage. And then on Lady R, which is a vintage, it's a minimum of 5 years. So we've really put the time and the effort into making an exquisite wine, and just in comparison
And that's
within that
that's
category.
a long time for Mr. Beck to wait to get his money back, isn't
Absolutely.
it? Somebody said to me, you can do this thing now, and maybe in 5 years' time we think it might be nice. We better all sit and say big thank you to the likes of Mr. Beck.
Absolutely. I have to
for
share...
allowing us the privilege of 5 years on the lees. It's lovely.
Yeah. I have to share a little story with you. I got an email from Europe yesterday. A private customer is desperately looking for a special bottle of Lady R because they have a wedding celebration of a couple who way back when came to visit Steenberg, and they got engaged on the farm. And it's like, they're in Europe. They could have just purchased a beautiful bottle of champagne.
Wonderful?
But they reached out to us and they wanted a special bottle of Lady R because it holds a special memory. And isn't that beautiful?
And did you have one?
Did
you have the right vintage?
Of course. We are sending them a bottle of Lady R from Germany to their home fantastic. for their little celebration. But I think that sums up what...
And that is so special. Now you have to make sure that she or he get in touch with you every single time they have a baby or do something special. Not that we're encouraging breeding, don't get me wrong, but anything special in their lives has to be celebrated with Lady.
We are encouraging celebrating life, aren't we, Carrie?
Yeah, absolutely that. Yeah. Now, Elunda, talk to me about, so we're doing the non-vintage, we're doing the Sauvignon Blanc, and we've got the Lady R. We have also got, what was I going to speak to you about? You've got two non-vintages. You've got the Chardonnay, and then you've got a straight Pinot Noir.
Yes,
Tell the listeners the difference between those two. Why would they choose one over the other?
Right. I would think for potentially kind of different occasions and most definitely different food pairings. I believe that Bubbly and Cap Classique has a moment in time for every kind of style. So the 100% Chardonnay, the Blanc de Blanc, it has a beautiful dry finish, and it has all that beautiful fruit and Chardonnay expression with a nice little nutty biscuity finish on the palate brought from time on lease. Whereas I think a little bit more of a summery, easy drinking celebration next to the pool would allow the moment to enjoy the 1682 Pinot Noir Rosé. So I think there are...
Oh, really? So you're saying that the Pinot Noir is less serious than your Blanc de Blanc,
No, I'm not saying that, but I do feel like the Chardonnay, the Blanc de Blanc, has a drier finish, where because it's 100% Pinot and red berry fruit expression with a slightly sweeter dosage, it brings out the fruit, and it tends to be perceived on the palate as a little sweeter, although they're both brut.
And are you thinking of making a demi-sec of any description? I unashamedly stick my hands up and say, I love demi-sec bubbles. There's very few things that go with eggs, and I love eggs. So I always said to my biology prof when I was at varsity, I said to him, if you've got a carnivore and an omnivore and a vegetarian, that I am oviviparous. I could live on eggs. That's what I want to be, an ovivipe. So if you make creamy scrambled eggs on Sunday mornings and you have a bottle, and I always tell Peter Ferreira, icy cold Grambeck Bliss.
Yes.
In the fridge. There is no nicer match. It's a pairing made in heaven. So, and I think that with all of us, we have a duty of care to teach as many people in South Africa, in fact in the world, to enjoy the lovely wines of the Western Cape. And I know when I started drinking wine, first of all, I wanted it to be a little bit sweeter.
Yes.
It's a bit of a shock to the palate.
Yes.
To have this sort of dry stuff, So I think that's why sales of the French bubblies, because they've always made demi-secs, tiny quantities, because the French tell you that you've got to drink dry, or go home.
Yes.
But I think that the South Africans' personality lends itself to these beautiful, sexy, happy, festive, sweeter bubblies. Are you going to make us one?
So I think the short answer is right now no, because in all honesty, we're kind of at maximum capacity in our little cellar space. But absolutely, I think we have to be real in saying and acknowledging that people like to talk dry, but they actually drink sweet.
That's what they do.
And absolutely in Champagne, it is exactly that. They talk dry, but if you look at their stats and their sales in Africa and in South Africa, it's demi-sec. If we look at the growth within Cup Classique category, it's demi-sec. And we all understand that our wine palate and profile starts sweet and then works its way down to appreciating and understanding drier profiles. Also, partly the success behind Prosecco is that it's not brut. It's a little sweeter. It's just in that.
But that's what I was going to say.
Profile.
100% maybe. That's where we tell everybody to rush out and buy a case of the Sauvignon Blanc bubbly, because it's a little bit more gregarious in your mouth.
Yes.
If I can put it like that.
Yes.
It's a much more fun way to get yourself involved in bubblies from Steenberg. The rest of your bubblies they're serious wines. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. Tell me about the harvest for 2023. We've had such extreme weather. Talk to me. Where are you at?
Yeah, I actually think that 2023 might be at the end of the summary, looking back, it might actually be a little bit more of a normal vintage. I think it's January has started a lot less extreme than last year January, and I'm speaking for the Constantia Valley. I think looking at us harvesting our first grapes on the 11th of Jan, that is pretty much standard. I looked at the stats last year. We only started on the 24th of Jan. That's a little bit more abnormal. And although we had a dry winter, we actually had a little bit more rain in spring, a little bit more rain in summer already, making up for the drier winter. So I think off our own farm here at Steenberg, we're expecting a similar crop to last year. So actually pretty normal.
And I mean, we were told in Johannesburg about temperatures in Cape Town going up to 39 and 40 degrees. I suppose that's reserved really for Paarl and Tilbach and those sort of places. So you're not having those extremely high temperatures, but there has been a lot of rain, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Not too much fruities in the vineyards then?
Not too much yet. Luckily it's early days, so vineyards are still in a growth space. They're still working on developing those little grape bunches, but we're going to have to take care later on. And luckily Steenberg has this beautiful southeasterly blowing in from the coastline. So from 12 o'clock during the summer months, and especially in January now, from 12 o'clock, we'll start getting a little bit of a breeze. And then from 3 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we're already in the shade of Table Mountain. And so we're super blessed. And that makes our average temperatures significantly lower to some of the warmer, drier areas.
It's what makes your bubbly gorgeous, and it's what makes your Sauvignon Blanc so delicious as well.
Ma'am.
I'm not a massive Sauvignon Blanc fan, except for the Constantia Sauvignon Blancs. They really are extraordinary. Anybody who hasn't tried the Sauvignon Blancs from Constantia really, really, really do need to. Give my listeners a quick rundown of your Sauvignon Blancs. I think we start at the top. Is Black Swan our top dog?
No. So let's start on the bubbly side. The most easy drinking is obviously Sauvignon with bubbles. So that's the bottle fermented sparkling Sauvignon. And then from a total of all the 23 blocks of Sauvignon on the farm, we do a classic blend. And from there, we have a small portion that's fermented in barrels. So that's the barrel fermented Sauvignon Blanc in a Blanc Fumé style, which is a great food wine. Then we move to the kind of vineyard selection wine, which is the Black Swan, minimal cellar intervention, and a real true expression of what our terroir does best in Sauvignon Blanc. And then I am happy to say we are soon to release the next vintage of Magna Carta, which is a Sauvignon Semillon blend.
Which of course is a blend.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Which I believe white blends from Constantia are just superior, and we're very excited about the new Magna Carta.
When was
coming
the
out.
last time you released a Magna Carta?
It was before my time. I think the last vintage was a 2017. And so we're looking at releasing the 2021 in April this year. So, yeah.
Well, I want to taste that. I can remember the first Magna Carta that they ever launched. And then I think that, was it J.D.
It's probably John Loebscher and then J.D. after him.
It was John Loebscher.
Yeah.
Who made it.
Yeah.
And I think J.D. then started at the cellar and he was an assistant before John left.
Correct.
And then they released some Magna Carta in magnums.
Wow.
And I still have one or two of those magnums in my own private cellar.
Wow.
So maybe, Elunda, when you come to Johannesburg, if we can ever entice you to Johannesburg.
Absolutely. I'm there often.
Yeah, are you?
Yeah.
Well, next time you phone me and we'll just open that magnum for you and me. It was one of the best wines that ever came out of Constantia. It was delicious stuff.
Amazing.
So I'm excited about that.
I'm sure we're going to do a special event in Joburg for the launch, and we'll make sure you're there.
Let me know. And then you do make some red wine.
Yes.
Do you still make a Nebbiolo?
Yes, ma'am.
So delicious. It's lovely. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I think it's being an Italian red varietal is quite an oddball concept for most local consumers.
Why did they plant Nebbiolo on Steenberg?
Because
I never knew why.
Legend has it that one of the previous farm managers and viticulturists went on a little trip to Italy and fell in love.
Oh, tell me, and fell in love with an Italian woman.
Of course, wine, woman, and song. and then was very sneaky and brought in some original Italian plant material and had it developed and grown in Lesotho and then brought it in. And so
it was very covert.
As the story goes, we have the original planting material of the first Nebbiolo in South Africa. And so...
Well, I'm a terrible conspiracy theorist. And I love covert love stories like that.
Right.
So I think we should make up the biggest romantic story around that whole thing. But aside from all of that, it is very delicious wine.
Yes.
And it's strange because I'm not mad about red wine from the Constantia Valley.
Right.
But that Nebbiolo is delicious.
Yeah, I always think of Nebbiolo as kind of the Italians' version of Pinot Noir, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's really strange to explain it to people, to have them understand it and appreciate it, because we're also used to Cabernet, Merlot, and Shiraz. But it's something unique to Steenberg, and I think Steenberg wines are all about wonderful wine stories, because people get emotionally involved with wine, and on the estate it's a beautiful wine, and it's very popular in our tasting room where our ambassadors have the opportunity to tell these stories. So,
well, let's tell them what it tastes like. For me, my lasting memory of your Nebbiolo is that it's like a cool climate Nebbiolo, because you are cool climate.
Yes.
So it's got this almost minty fresh elegance of what is normally quite a generous Italian grape.
yes.
Not as generous as Sangiovese, but it's generous enough. And it's got a velvety, it's almost got like a velvet glove on it.
Yeah.
So you put it in your mouth and you've got this lovely, clean freshness in your mouth. But when you swallow it, it's like swallowing Grand's velvet curtains. Do you know what I mean? It's very soft and velvety. So that's what the Nebbiolo is. And then, talking about stories, tell them a nice story about Katerina.
Well, the legend that is Katerina Ras. So the wonderful thing about Steenberg, and that we're so proud of, is that this farm dates back to the late 1600s, when, of course, the Cape was wild and wonderful, and we had lions and elephants and big, dangerous animals roaming the Cape. And this wonderful...
We still do. They're just on 2 legs now instead of 4.
You're right. And in that time, this incredible legend of a woman decided she wanted to leave Germany and her hometown of Lübeck and start a new life for herself, all on her own, so very brave, very courageous, and came to the Cape to recreate herself and write an incredible legendary story for herself. And she was based here on the farm, and she was awarded the title deed from Simon van der Stel in 1682, and created a farm where she was trading with fresh fruit and vegetables and supplying to everyone arriving at the Cape and trading in fresh produce. And legend has it that she ended up getting married 5 times and surviving.
She sounded like the most wonderful woman.
Absolutely.
Why do we think she came to South Africa? Does anybody really know? I mean, I've looked, but I can't find why Katerina actually came to South Africa. In those days, even the South Africa didn't know it was here.
Yes.
So how did Katerina know that it was here? From Germany.
No.
Of all places.
No.
Anyway, she was absolutely gorgeous. She was married too many times. She obviously loved the boys and the boys loved her. And she made this gorgeous farm that is now so beautiful and parate and prim and proper and magnificent. And I think when she was running it, it was harem, scarum, big fat fun, and she made the most amazing space of Steenberg. I've got a very soft spot for Steenberg because of her.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous. So anybody who wants to have some fun and start delving deep into how deliciously gorgeous this wine industry of ours is, she's a good place to start, isn't she?
Yeah, she is a good place to start, and her estate is a good place to visit. We have we have some wonderful harvest season interactions with customers and guests. So people must come and experience harvest at Steenberg.
It's gorgeous. And are they allowed to pull in, or do they have to phone and book and say, can we come and do a little bit of a harvest thing here with you? How do they do it?
So Constantia's had an incredible hospitality season. Most of the restaurants and most of the tasting rooms would definitely prefer people to try and phone ahead and book.
Yes.
But we will always try and accommodate walk-ins, but we're going to have little cellar tours and tasting of juice and grapes on a daily basis as soon as harvest starts.
Fantastic. And you still got your beautiful restaurant,
yes,
have you?
We are going to serve fresh sparkliest from Sauvignon Blanc juice and whatever's available on the day. So
Delicious.
People must come and just have a good time at Steenberg.
And Elunda, do you still do jazz on Sundays there? You used to have jazz at Steenberg on a Sunday. I suppose that's something that finished about 200 years ago.
Yeah, probably just after the death of Katerina. No.
Yeah, she would have had jazz and made it lots of fun.
No, but we...
you are going to be the next Katerina of Steenberg, because you're an amazing woman. I haven't spent any time telling everybody how amazing you are. You're no stranger to bubbles. You sort of single-handedly sorted out that bunch of Distel boys. You looked after Pongratz and J.C. LaRue and Niederberg. You've done an amazing... When you were little, did you think that you wanted to be the queen of bubbles in South Africa?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I knew that I wanted to be a farmer of some sorts. But no, I've just been truly blessed, and it's such a wonderful privilege.
And how come it just became bubbles?
So at one point in time, while I was still the red winemaker at Nederburg, Melanie van der Merwe, who used to be the famous Pongras winemaker, she actually decided to scale down her winemaking activities and focus on her family. And she was doing a massive commute from Worcester into Stellenbosch every day. And she just decided time out. And the then director of wine in Distel said, look, aren't you interested in a new challenge? And I said, let's go. And it just so happened that at that point in time, Bubbly just exploded and Cap Classique just exploded. And I had the privilege to learn from the best out there, the Peter Ferreras, the Jeff Greers, the Milans.
Aren't they just gorgeous? Yeah. Every time I meet them, I think how incredibly lucky we are to have this wealth. And they continue to research and do, all of you.
Absolute legends.
Have put so much into the production of bubbly in South Africa. And we really have, you've got it to a stage where I think that we can go to war with the best bubblies in the world. We really, really could. And we'll probably win.
Absolutely. I think we're reaping the benefit of it. So, yeah.
And if I were to ask you, you've got a family.
Yes.
How do you manage to juggle your family and your bottles?
I have an incredible husband and I have an incredible support structure and I have strong kids who appreciate me for my strengths and bear with me on my weaknesses. And I've just been blessed with a strong support structure and with people who love me.
I think it's brilliant, and I love speaking to women like you who send a message loud and clear that says you don't have to fight for anything because you haven't fought for anything. Neither have I. You just have to be the best.
Yeah, and be authentically true to
just
who you are.
You. Yeah. That's it. And you can have it all. And you have got it all. What book sits next to your bed? What do you read in your spare time? Or don't you?
I don't really read a lot.
That's a terrible admission.
Yeah, sorry. This time of year, to be very honest, I have a little notepad and a pen so that when I wake up at 2 a.m. and I remember something that needs to be done in the pressing cellar, I make a note of it and then have a quick nap and then
so we got a notebook next to our bed at the moment.
Yeah. But
I'm going to catch you in June when all of you winemakers are lying in bed until 10 o'clock in the morning and leaving the cellar at 3 in the afternoon. And I'm going to ask you what you're reading.
That doesn't happen in the life of a Cap Classique winemaker. We're always busy, especially if you're at maximum capacity. But it's a wonderful thought, and I'm looking forward to those mornings.
Well, you are one of our national treasures. You're one of our heroes. And thank you very, very much for taking time out in the middle of your harvest. I do appreciate it. I'm going to send everybody to the shops to go and buy some Steenberg Sauvignon Blanc to celebrate you and say thank you for all that you've done for us so far.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with your harvest.
Highly appreciate it, and thank you for your wonderful support.
Anytime. Cheers.
Bye.
Another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.